Let me paint you a picture and stop me if this starts to feel familiar. Your whole team's crammed into an office. It is cold, but it's also kind of humid. There's a fan blowing, but not really on anyone. One fluorescent light bulb is flickering, and it is directly in front of you. And you have spent the last 30 minutes listening to a training conductor read off of a PowerPoint about functionalities that don't actually touch the job that you and your team are doing. Sharif is playing games on his phone. Tanya fell asleep 20 minutes ago. And Rick is so annoyed that you're starting to see that vein above his eye. That's never a good sign. You are in a bad training. Actually, you know what? Give me just 1 second. I made myself mad reading that. Give me a second. We've all been through bad training sessions, right? And I'm willing to bet that the technology that we are being trained on, it may have been great, but that was the technology that we turned around, walked to the water cooler, and said, I'm not using this. Look, digital adoption is tough. It is difficult to make people use something new, even if that tool is really well suited for their needs. And that's made all the worse when training just isn't particularly effective. If team leaders want their employees to really take advantage of new digital technology, that means they need better training, and that means that they need better training plans. This is Transformation at Work, a podcast about real stories of business transformation and Salesforce success, without all the jargon attached. The show is brought to you by Jarrett, a summit-level Salesforce consulting and implementation partner and solutions provider, and I am Jeff Stormer, your host as always. In this episode, we're talking about the importance of tech training plans and digital implementations, why team leaders need to invest in training, how to connect with employees and really help them understand new technology, and how a qualified partner can make tech training a major success. Our guest is Antonia Moore, Senior Business Analyst at Jarrett. Antonia lives and breathes training. She has 15 years of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, and in that time, she's led countless training sessions, digital deployments, and helped employees at all levels, both internal and external, understand what they can accomplish with Salesforce. She has an incredible passion for training, mentorship, and education, which is really apparent from the moment you start listening to her speak. We start our conversation by breaking down a few key reasons why businesses should consider developing a tech training plan even well before they start deploying a new digital technology.
Because they're spending their money. Number one, unless they've got money to burn, not a problem. Don't worry about it. But one, if you're spending your money, you want to make sure that you're going to get that return on investment. And the next thing is, people respect a company that they feel respects them enough to give them the tools that they need to do the job. Point blank and period. People don't leave jobs per se or leave money. They leave managers and or people they worked with. So that's the reason why it is so important that you understand that this training thing, when companies choose to get a new system, training is far more important than the here and now. It impacts everything, because I've talked to customers and we talk to them and we find out their pain points. And quite often when we find out their pain points, there's always something that surfaces, well, yeah, we've had an implementation before and oh boy, oh my God, it just didn't go well. Well, how was your training? What training? See, that's a problem. Your people are the most important part of a project, because you can spend your money all day. If they're not going to use it and give you the return on your investment, it was for naught.
Now, those reasons might make developing a tech training plan and investing in the training process seem like a pretty logical decision, and it really is a crucial step in the process. And yet, a lot of businesses don't put that time and energy into training, and that leads to struggles when it comes to adoption of CRMs and other new technologies. For a closer look at this, we sat down with Nikhil Bhatia, Jarrett's automotive practice lead. Nikhil has over 11 years of experience in mechanical engineering, business transformation, and digital strategy, all within the automotive industry, and has seen firsthand a lot of the struggles the industry has faced when it comes to CRM adoption. Struggles that, as he breaks down here, have a whole lot to do with training. Let's throw it over to Nikhil.
Most companies underestimate the need for training, the need for change management when it comes to any kind of software implementation, digital transformation, etc. Because They believe that it's a plug and play system. Why would somebody have a problem using it? But in the end, it comes down to how friendly the system is, how much of a problem it is solving for them on a daily basis. Is it making their life more efficient or not, etc.? So all of those things, I think, come and play a lot when it comes to digital transformations, which do not include training. From my personal experience, every 3 to 5 years, I've seen technology change so much that I need to stay up to date to understand what's going on, what we are doing, and what can we do better, and what's upcoming. So I personally feel that tech training is definitely a very crucial aspect of every digital transformation. And obviously that includes change management, creating a training plan and getting all the stakeholders involved. And most importantly, understanding what the need is, because I believe every customer, every client has different needs because they are working with different set of people. And I think these are very critical aspects that need to be understood before implementation takes place.
That's all well and good, but it does leave the big lingering question, which is, what does a successful training plan really look like? Or to put it another way, how do you really do it? And as Antonia breaks down here, that process starts well before the first training session, with team leaders asking the right questions to their team to find out what's going to help individual employees best adopt that solution. Let's throw it back to Antonia.
One of the first conversations that we're going to have on our team is about the gap analysis. And that's going to be the difference between the current state and future state. That's one. When we get that gap analysis in there, this is everything that needs to be taught. Now, who needs to learn it? When do they need to learn it? What role is this most important to, and why? And then there are other things that are not taken into account so much, and we have to call these out all the time. And because people don't think about it until afterwards. I want to know, what is the demographic of the people I am training? Older people need a little bit more time when it comes to grasping new technologies and functionalities. You're used to doing things a certain way. It's not just spewing things out. So the demographic. And what happened at the last training? Have you guys ever had a training? How well did that go? What things were said about this? Have there been any surveys that went out to gain any type of anonymous information that could help us the next time around? There are so many things that go into making this and finding out, mainly what is the gap? How can we best fill it? That's important for us.
Now, let's say that I'm a team leader and I have done the analysis, I have asked the questions, I have identified the gaps, and I'm ready to start building and deploying this tech training plan. How do I make sure that my employees are excited and invested from day one so that they really dive in with both feet and take advantage of the training so that they eventually will take advantage of the solution itself?
Even for training, just like for change management, I am a big proponent of cultivating champions. People who are going to grasp the technology faster, because you're going to always have people who are first and early adopters. Those are your champions, and we don't call them out as champions so much, but we gravitate to them during the training as a way to lead others, because this is your peer. So when you see your peer catching on and you see your peer interacting with the trainer and bringing this on home, then your teammates are more likely to jump on board with that peer.
Now, speaking of identifying champions, those particular users that are going to dive in with both feet, make the most out of a new piece of technology, and bring their coworkers along for the ride, Nikhil had very similar thoughts about how team leaders can build training plans that keep users and those super users in mind throughout the process. Let's hear what Nikhil had to say.
So I think the most important thing would be users need to be top of mind for any trainings being created, because that's our end audience. And when we talk about tech training, we are talking about training for employees of different age groups, different educational backgrounds. Somebody may be an intern at 2022, or somebody may be a seasoned professional at 50. So you can imagine, for somebody who's been using certain systems for the last 10 or 20 years, for them to accept a new system and to give it a chance, all of those things need to happen side by side and at the same time in coordination with the actual users. And whenever we talk about super users or concepts like, in a group of 20 people, we have one user who understands this better than everybody else. So that is all because of proactive planning and being able to gauge where are the risks in terms of implementing or doing a successful digital transformation. So I think from that perspective, I will say that it has to be a proactive approach and it has to be done in coordination with the users and the stakeholders involved.
As Nikhil pointed out, one of the distinct challenges in building a tech training plan is that, well, we're all different. Everyone has different backgrounds, skill sets, experiences, and areas where they're going to struggle. And no matter how many questions you ask or how thorough your plan, that's still going to be something you're going to run into with any training process that you kick off. And as Antonia breaks down here, that means that as a team leader conducting trainings, one of the best things that you can do is, well, be flexible.
No matter what we're doing, we're going to, Salesforce is a beautiful thing. Don't even get me started on how much I love Salesforce. Don't get me started on that, man. But one thing I really love is how there's more than one way to do anything. And sometimes you have to explore different ways and the way you say a given thing or the way you present a given thing in order to meet your audience where they are. That to me is the most important thing. Meet that audience where they are. And for me, I don't care if I have a training that's laid out to perfection and we need to be on time. If one person can't catch on, then I'm going to sidetrack this thing and we're going to talk about it in a different way for them to catch on, because that one person who doesn't catch on at the end, that is going to be the voice that rings really loud. Because they're, well, I was in the training, but they didn't explain it properly, or I had a question that didn't get answered or whatever. That's super important that we are, sensitive to making sure that we've covered all those bases, because when the tech team have come in and they've created this great solution and they've went out and they've implemented it, it's my turn to come in and put a bow on this thing.
That's a really interesting point, and I feel like it's valuable to talk about, because I think when we talk about making any sort of a plan, there is this very understandable impulse to map out point A to point B to point C. And like you said, that kind of rigid planning can lead to, well, people falling through the gaps, people not keeping up with the plan, people missing things, not having their questions answered. And that is not an ideal experience for somebody trying to do the thing and learn a new technology. And so, yeah, I think it's a really interesting point that's valuable to keep in mind is there is no one set solution, just like there's no one set solution in Salesforce. It's about knowing your team, knowing their backgrounds, how they learn, and what's going to help them get the most out of a new piece of technology. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And training people on how to use a given technology is not just showing them how to put the bottle cap on the bottle, but it's also positioning that new functionality in their mind so that it becomes a part of what they're doing every day. It has to be able to integrate organically so that it just becomes what you do, not, oh my God, now we have to do this in the new way. And 30 days later, you're still complaining, yeah, we got to do it the new way, That's because you didn't integrate with what they already knew, because education is this funny thing. You're always going to learn something new, but in order for it to stick easily, we have to build a bridge from that new thing to something that we already knew that was already there, and we're just adding on. And I'm going to tell you something. We have to begin to think about how we present our trainings better as well. Salesforce has it right with Trailhead, because we are all adults, but we like games. They hit the nail on the head with gamification.
Let's break down a definition really quickly. Salesforce's approach to training and certifications. Trailhead is a self-service educational platform for learning Salesforce that, to Antonia's point, integrates a lot of games and gamified elements to make the prospect of training Salesforce and getting certified, which, let's be real, can be an intimidating prospect, into something fun and engaging and that you as an employee really want to dive in and take advantage of. It's a really great example of how to make a training program not just painless, but really fun and exciting. Let's throw it back to Antonia.
That right there should be a clue to all of us what adults need when it comes to training. Yes, they need the facts. Yes, they need what's real, but keep it light in between. Give us mental breaks in between. That's the fun part of training for me.
Now, what I'd love to get your thoughts on, we've talked about connecting with employees, we've talked about getting them excited, and we've talked about kind of adjusting process to account for different ways of learning. But if I'm thinking about a team leader who's kicking this process into high gear, eventually, no matter how you flavor it, you're going to get into the nitty-gritty of process. You're going to get into the boring part, for lack of a better way to put it. Do you have thoughts on how team leaders can make the technical, the boring, the process-driven parts of training enjoyable for their employees?
One word: efficiency. One word. So if you have this given thing that you have to do every day, and there are, these 5 steps that you have to do every day, you can make them the worst 5 steps you have to take, or you can make them the best or the easiest. That's what we do during training. We've been given, the 5 steps because that's the solution. Okay? What we do is make it easier to understand. We position it in people's minds a different way. Just position it in people's minds where they can understand that the process makes sense and that it's better for them. It saves them time, and in the end, they win. See, that's where it all goes back to in the beginning with this whole project. Companies can have all the ideas they want on the solution that is needed, but unless you have conferred with those who use that given thing every day as to what efficiencies they need, then you have not hit the nail on the head. You missed the whole boat. Now, when they've conferred with the people who use it, right, they're going to give them their ideas because they're going to give what I call the wish it would's. Man, I wish this thing would work like this. That's what they're going to give them. When you give that to our team is going to hear your pain points, and they're going to make your wish it would work just like that. So being that they gave you your wish it would, it's not a hard thing for you to understand the concept of the functionality because that's what you've asked for. That's how it all works together. The only thing we have to tell you is which way to use the functionality to make it do what you wanted it to do in the first place.
Now, the other big thing I want to get your thoughts on is obviously any new technology, new process, new training regimen, any of these things is going to bring with it, let's be real, stumbling blocks, right? Pitfalls, areas where people are going to get tripped up. What are, in your perspective, a few of the common pitfalls that businesses have run into with rolling out their training plans, and how can I, as a team leader, work to address those problems with my team?
By rushing it and not giving it the weight that it deserves. You cannot rush this thing. Training is not putting words on a piece of paper and throwing it at someone and saying, there you go. You don't rush this thing. You read the room, you feel it out. See, we can do the same implementations at 2 different companies. And one company, we'll be able to, give them the documentation and they take it and run with it because maybe that company has more people who are tech savvy or may have had experience in the tool. There's just so many different variations there. Then we have another company, whereas sometimes you have to slow down a little bit. You got to slow down a little bit and you got to be more thoughtful about what you're putting on the paper, how this is being presented to people, just how they're accepting it. That number one thing there is take your time, understand the need, address the need, period. Address the need. I don't care how great I am and how great you and I are in our encounter. If you're hungry and I'm there to feed you and all this time I just keep cooking and never put a plate on the table in front of you, I have not addressed the need. You're hungry. That's my number one thing, address the need.
Now, there's a very common stumbling block or a very common scenario that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I think this segues perfectly to it, which is that need to rush in, right? That impulse to say, hey, I've got this can't be that difficult. It's understandable when you factor in the mindset of, I already know how to do this. And this is the specific thing I really want to get your thoughts on. How do you address the employee mindset of, I already know how to do this, I already have a process to do this, I have a tool that does this already? How do you help someone see that this new tool is going to make their job better when they might already have established processes and might be resistant to that new technology for that exact reason?
Make it a part of life. Because check this out. When we do our implementations, what we're looking at is user adoption. Sometimes there are there quite often there can be times where people have these workarounds, you know, and one of the first things I think you have to do is take that away. And if we take our training and structure it so that we are giving people all that they need in the training, and all they have to do is trust us, go forward and get rid of the old and say, okay, it's a new day. I think that right there is the number one thing. We have to make sure that we provide them with the crutch that they need, because we're all going to need one. We all need a crutch every time something changes. Give people the proper crutch and let them go.
But the question is, who is responsible for building that crutch? Whose role is it going to be to spot those stumbling blocks that a team might run into and design and produce the workflows and solutions to help those teams avoid those problems before they happen? As Nikhil breaks down here, that's really where a qualified technology partner can step up and prove to be a crucial part in the training and implementation process. Let's hear from Nikhil.
It is the job of definitely the implementation partner to help those organizations understand the needs and being able to create a tailored program for their particular project. And I think here I would like to use my experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, where I believe that we are the exact partners that a lot of digital transformation projects need when it comes to understanding or figuring out what can possibly go wrong, and us being transparent with our customers, with our partners, and saying that if we are going ahead with a digital transformation of this size, these are the possible risks we see, these are the possible trainings that we think are necessary. This is a very delicate balance to do any kind of digital transformation for an organization that has not been up to date on technology. And a good training plan always comes in handy when it is supported by change management as well. All organizations have the right intent. They want their software to be used. But change management is that necessary key piece, which I think is often missing in our industry, where that's the make or break between a good digital transformation and an average or a subpar one.
So let's put the pieces together here, because let's be real. What we're describing here is a lot of work. It's a lot of people hours. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of questions. It's a lot of everything. And that brings with it the question, what's the end game? What's the ROI? What are we all working towards here? So let's hear from Antonia on what it looks like when a training process is firing on all cylinders and what teams really get out of the process when all is said and done.
So let's say this trainings come with a lot of anxiety.
As I think everyone does, right?
Yeah, a ton of anxiety, because you are taking away what they knew to be rock solid, fast, and true. And you're replacing it with, what is that? I mean, oh, what? And it looks new too? Oh, boy.
Oh, if it looks new, that's a bad sign.
Oh, boy.
Nothing that looks new is good.
That's it. And then, and then you go to this one person who's the techie of everybody that's super user. And if they're like, I don't know. Now I don't know.
Yep.
That's just how it goes. You know what? I'm all right with those. What I really love is at the end of the training, when we start talking and reflecting on what we've been talking about all this time, that people are telling me, oh, that ain't so bad. We got that. Oh, it's no big deal. And I'm going to tell you the highlight. The highlight of a training is when I'm in a group training, whether it be in person or online, and I've gone through the training and someone asks a question that really isn't difficult or could be difficult. And someone will say, hey, I got you. Don't worry, Karen. You have to do this, that, the other, and the other. People think I'm here to teach them something or train them something. I'm here to empower you with new knowledge is what I'm here to do. I'm empowering you with new knowledge. And what you're going to do is teach yourselves how to best use this functionality, because what's going to happen after that, after your phase one? What happens after every phase one, phase two? Because now that you've learned how to use it, now you want to take it on a few more loop-de-loops and see what can really happen with this thing. That, at the end of every training, that is where I feel like I've done my job.
We've said a few times on the show that a tool is only useful if you use it. And the other half of that is that people won't use a tool if they don't know how. You can spend all the money in the world and bring in the most powerful piece of digital technology. But if your employees don't know how to take advantage, then, well, I can't even say you've paid for a paperweight because there's no physical object attached. Training is an intimidating prospect, and it is a ton of work. But when it's done well, when it's personalized and fun and something employees want to take part in, there's truly nothing quite as effective when it comes to adoption of new digital technologies. This has been Transformation at Work. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Antonia Moore and Nikhil Bhatia for your incredible insights on this episode. Transformation at Work is, as always, produced by Jarrett in collaboration with Salesforce. I am Jeff Stormer, your host and producer. If you enjoyed the show, consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, or head to jarrett.com to sign up for email updates when we release new episodes. Until next time, thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you again soon.